Hi, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace. This is the build video for the radio-controlled, rocket-powered Carbonette 12. So we're going to go through the construction of this radio-controlled rocket glider, and we'll show you how to build it out. Also, we'll detail some of the launch procedures and whatnot. Before we get started, things that you need a UMX brick. I do not sell these. So you'll need one of these, like a crashed UMX plane, something like that. This actually is the Chinese-built receiver brick. This one is a DSM-2 brick. They also have FreeSky bricks. What I want to point out is we're going to try and fly on this, but I have had a little bit of trouble with these having enough power to drive servos on certain models. So it should be okay, but you may see me with a Horizon brick at the end. If you have any worries about that, get the Horizon bricks. They are more expensive. The other thing is you're going to need a very small battery. This is a Venom 70 milliamp battery. These are pretty good. I don't recommend anything over 70 milliamps just because of the excess weight. This glider is designed for A-class engines and possibly smaller. So you can't use the 100, 150 milliamp batteries and whatnot and expect to get good performance. So let's go through what's included in your kit. So first of all, we've got some material for our hinges. We're going to attach our hinges with CA glue. We're going to have a 6-inch long body tube, 13 millimeter nose cone. I have a streamer. These are 8,000th piano wire push rods. Really thin, really light. We have some nose weight. We have a launch lug. We have 24-inch long shock cord. This is a carbon tube that's going to serve as your tail boom. Very small, don't lose it. This is the leading edge material for your wing. Fuselage core materials, fuselage side materials, control horns, locking lugs, tail surfaces, and a few other bits and pieces, and then your wing, complete with dihedral gauges. So with that, I'll get some wax paper up here and we'll get started with the build. Okay, I am not going to go into a bunch of detail on how to build out your wing because this is a Carbonette 12 wing. I will provide a link in the description to the video where I carve out the wing for the Carbonette 8, which is what we direct people to for the Carbonette 12. It's literally exactly the same. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to break this all out of here. Try not to throw your dihedral gauges off someplace. So there's your wing. We're going to attach the this leading edge strip basically down against the bottom, and then we'll plane down onto that. And like I said, follow the link in the description and it will show you how to do this. So I'm going to come back after I have carved the wing and then sanded it to a good finish, and then we'll continue on. I do, as I said, I wasn't going to show any of this part. However, I do want to showcase this is a Kimball razor plane. These are amazing. They are the best there is. They are a little hard to get on to get in that there's a waiting list associated with these because Bruce has a day job and is not really interested in pursuing making tools as his full-time gig. But if you can get one, highly recommended. As you can tell, it just gets the job done with phenomenal speed and grace, and what other compliments can I come up with? It looks awesome. It feels awesome. It smells awesome. I know that sounded utterly ridiculous, but it's also completely true. And we'll mention you don't want to sand the trailing edge too thin. There's a reason for that. If you sand it too thin, it becomes excessively fragile, and then it will warp. Wing flutter is not a huge concern on these as far as the trailing edge shape. Getting the wing too thin, on the other hand, that can cause you some problems. And so I've got mine down to about a little under a 32nd of an inch thick, which is probably actually thinner than you really want to be. But bottom line is, stick with that. About a 32nd of an inch, I would not cut it thinner. And then you can do the leading edge. I'm doing a stand foil, which is what I always do. At this size, this airplane is not going to have some kind of amazing wind penetration. I don't care what airfoil you use. So use something that is proven. And the stand foil is a proven form for this type of airplane. And so if you do your part, it'll do its part. It's going to give you as good wind penetration as you're going to get from anything else. So just don't try to get fancy and reinvent the wheel. Another thing is that the truth of the matter is, stand foil is actually one of the easier airfoils to make. So highly recommended. And this wing is effectively a sweepette outline. So Stan and Lee are very good friends. So the presence of Stan's airfoil on a sweepette style wing is it's just how it should be. So I'll finish sanding this out, and then we'll come back. Alright, so we have the wing built out, or carved out. It looks amazing, if I do say so myself. We do cut these with a little bit of washout in the wingtips, so the dihedral joints out here are skewed ever so slightly. Probably not completely necessary on a radio control airplane, but it does make it fly a little more hands-off. Hopefully even more so than the Carbonette 19, in that the advantage you get from this is that the airplane does not stall as easily. I'm not entirely sure that I understand what it is about washing out the wings of gliders of this layout that makes them be able to fly with the CG so much further aft, but it's just the way it is. And so what you're wanting to do is, you should snap through that leading edge. Just pop these all loose. I will confess I did kind of a sloppy job of cutting those. But the bottom line is, you want to now bevel sand each of these, like so, to get your dihedral correct. We don't build this airplane with a whole lot of dihedral. Just enough. Now find your dihedral jigs. So the longer one is the one that goes for the inner. Again, I'm just basically duplicating everything you've seen in the Carbonette 8, 6, 8, 12, whatever you want to call it, build video. In that, and slide the jig under there, set your dihedral, maybe seal the gap a little bit here. And there you go, that one's secured. Grab the other dihedral gauge for your tips. Excuse the hooping and hollering child. And good thing I got that right, because that is already hardened. That hardened instantly. And thanks to my eyeballs, it was correct. That one as well. Man, that hardened up fast. Now, this trailing edge has a little bit of a gap in it. You do not want that at the speeds we're going to be flying. Chances are this model will actually go slower on the way up than it would if it were catapult launched. But you want to be careful just the same. On catapult, I think we radared these to somewhere in the 80-90 mile an hour range. That'll harden eventually. So there's your wing, and now we'll move on to the tail surfaces. So you're going to do the same type of an arrangement on the tails here. There we go. Do not sand your tails too thin. The reason being is, especially on your stab, there's quite a propensity for this thing to go into flutter, and it can be pretty catastrophic. On the other hand, you also don't want a super blunt trailing edge on your stab, because that too can induce flutter. Or as one might more succinctly put it, the air is trying to kill you the faster you go. And I am going to run around the leading edge one more time here, like so. Flip around. Like so. So that's got that. Make a single pass here. Attempt to make a single pass here. That's the one disadvantage to a really thin or small flying surface like this. If y'all aren't laughing your heads off at this, you just aren't grasping how dumb I'm being. And don't slice your fingerprints off. So and we'll make one pass on the other side of the stab here. You're right. Rudder. That is what it is called. There we go. Alright, and then just sand these all nice and smooth. We are trying to shed as much weight as possible, because this is an A-class airplane, so any excess weight is a killer, especially since you still have to load in, roughly 8 grams of electronics, and that is an altitude killer by itself, let alone all this. So that's the rudder and vertical stab. Horizontal tail here, an elevator. And we'll go higher grip for a moment. There we go. And there we go. Now all you have to do is come in here, separate that stab all the way down, take your horizontal tail, bevel this hinge line at a 45-degree angle, and sand it a little. And there you go. Now, next, take your hinge material. And we don't need it to be very wide at all. We do need a sharp razor blade. I am using a very dull razor blade. And so we are actually just going to CA this in place. A bead of CA along here. Slide this guy on, and voila, a hinge line. And that's tacked down all the way along. Now before we attach this, we just want to verify, yes, it does travel correctly. So now, do the same exact arrangement here. All along that hinge line. So if you notice, I set it with the bevel and then dropped it down. That way, or full deflection, all that jazz. Flex down correctly. So we've got proper travel. If you have them handy, use scissors to trim this to size. I'm going to go get mine. Alright, so the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to hinge your rudder, and you want to remember that the rudder needs to have its control horn on this side, because I've got this one set up with the control horn over here on the left, so the rudder needs to be hinged on that side, so the hinge goes on the left side of the rudder, the same side as the control horn. That was the elevator control horn that I should have mentioned. I'm jabbering on. I have no idea what I'm saying. And so, same arrangement. Off camera, I went ahead and trimmed that hinge to size because someone else needed my scissors. And we'll do the same thing here. You're probably going to get glue in your slot for your control horn. That's okay. I do recommend paying particular attention to making sure that this, especially that your rudder is very secure, because in terms of flying, you need the rudder more than you do the elevator. Because your main thing is you're trying to direct this thing around from thermal to thermal. So we've got our control horns cleaned out here. Or control horn slots, I should say. So now we can go ahead and we can glue these on. Good. So we'll lather that up with some CA. Permanently attaching that, hopefully. And so this is going to set like so. The control horn's over there, this control horn's on this side. Try to not glue yourself to the part. There we go. Now, next thing we'll do is take our tail boom, just kind of lightly sand the back of it so that it adheres a little better. And now we've got these little center line marks here, so what you want to do is just from the center line mark to the one at the front, run your bead of glue. Do not get glue in the end of the tube. And so, there you go. It's correctly lined up. Now you're going to take your rudder. Your rudder is going to mount with a gap coming out of that tube so that the hinge lines of these two are lined up. You don't have to be perfectly lined up. You can slide it back a little bit, which I'm actually going to do, and that just gives you a little more space for your elevator. And there we go. So you can see how I have that have this hinge line forward a little bit of the elevator hinge line. And so we've got plenty of travel here. This guy has stiffened up a little bit. After you flex it back and forth a little, you're good to go. So next up, we'll start on the fuselage. Alright, so we're going to crack the fuselage core out of here. Be careful, this is a little bit fragile until it's fully assembled. And now we're going to pop out these fuselage sides. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to attach first fuselage side like that. Now notice how I have left this gap right here. So you want to line up the bottoms of these along here. Now, one thing I have noticed, I set up the wrong size liners on this. I cut this. The ones you'll have are going to be much smaller. Right, so the way that they're going to go in is they're going to go in the side here. And I'm going to just cut this guy to size as we're doing this. So you can see the correct way that it's supposed to go. So it glues in here. Because what we're doing is we're just necking down the slot to correctly fit the tail boom. So you end up with this arrangement right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue the other one in here, flush against the other side, just because I think that's going to be a little easier to do. I'll trim it to size afterwards, but for now, what our goal is we want to leave this groove that is sized for our tail boom to fit through. And don't ever do what I just did, which was to get glue in the end of my tail boom, which I'm now going to have to figure out. Actually, I think I got it cleaned out there, just to make sure. It's always helpful to have a piece of wire handy. Alright, so it slides in and out freely. Alright. That's what happens when you stick it down there with a puddle of wet glue. Alright, last part. We're going to glue, if I can do it correctly, I'm going to glue this piece in like that. That's going to support your wing leading edge, and it provides a tunnel to slip your battery cord through to the battery compartment, which is this part up here. All right. Now, we have our fuselage. Like I said, you're not going to have to trim this to size, but I cut it the wrong size as far as when I put the files in here for this one. And anyway, there we go. Now you can give this a light sanding just to make it all look cute and stuff. I don't really recommend rounding things off too much. You can, but especially not yet, because we're going to attach some parts up front here right now. And these are going to be your side plates for your fuselage here. So these are going to fit on the front of the fuselage like that. You want these to closely match the front profile of your fuselage. And the reason for that is that helps you get them lined up, and then you get a better lockup on your rocket pod, boost pod, however you want to, whatever term you want to use for it. And there you go. Next, we will go ahead and inlay our tail boom here. So we want to be careful to not get glue in the end of the tail boom. If you have to, stick petroleum jelly in the end of it or something. Anyway, once you've got that resolved, you want this to be aligned pretty closely here. You can see this actually has a little bit of flex in it. We're not designing this airplane to go crazy fast, so it's okay for the tail boom to flex a little. And then the last thing is you drop this wing on here. I like to have the wing up here just a little bit like that, so about a ½ inch forward of that area. Your choice as to what you want to do there. I'm actually going to sand this off. Just to make it look all cute like. This mainly gets you more glue contact with the fuselage up here, and why that's important is that the wing is actually a structural element holding everything together. The bottom line is glue it on there and make sure that you're level across here relative to your horizontal tail. Now, your airframe for your glider is done. Alright, we're going to, I did forget one thing I want to add on to the glider, and that's this little triangle right here. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put it on the right side. This is a throwing grip, and this way you can go out there and you can toss this thing around. It's fun, entertaining, all that. This is going to limit your access to your electronics a little bit, and actually I'm going to cut this guy like so, because for my receiver brick it's actually going to get in the way a little bit. And the reason I mention that is this guy is going to fit in here. Like that. Alright, we'll glue that on later. First we want to build our pod. Pod is pretty quick to build here. So pop this out. I have this little tiny piece right here. Pop it out. And it glues right on the side back here, like that. Next, pop these little guys out, and there are identical plywood pieces. There we go. And so you're going to make these mirror images of each other, so let me show you what I mean by that. We got this one. And now, I'm going to slide this one around the opposite direction, like so. Just like that. Plywood on one side, balsa on the other. Now, the way this works is these mate onto the back of this keel with the plywood on the inside. So you mount one on one side against that, that little spacer. The one on the other side does not have a spacer. I glued mine on kind of sloppily, but not going to mate up real nicely. But here's the bottom line. This slips on like so. You notice it's got some play in it. Once it's fully locked in, there's very, very little play. But the important thing is, oh, I've got glue on there. Don't do that. Slides right off. You want this thing to barely hang on there. Now, kind of sand a little bit of a groove in the middle here. Right here on your body tube. Rough up an area on this, and now put this all in place. And voila. Go up to the top, rough up an area on top, grab launch slug, line up your launch lug, and on it goes. Next, take your shock cord here. There should be a hole in your pylon here. Come up around the top so you're completely encircling this tube. And I recommend tying it off just in front of the lug here. Do a double knot. And make sure that you glue this knot, because if you don't, it will come untied. Do not ask how I know that, but it should be obvious. Now take your nose cone, split the shoulder only. Now what we're going to do is glue this onto the side of our nose cone, just like that. And now I'm going to pull it over into this slot, but before I do that, I'm going to put glue all the way along this slot that I've carved. I'm going to snap that shock cord down in there, and then I'm going to pull it back. So I pulled it all the way through to the other side and then pulled it back so it's coming out the back of the shoulder. Squirt a little more CA in there, just make sure all of that's secure. Now, take your shot cord here, your streamer. So we're going to tie a knot like this in our shot cord. We're going to slip part of the streamer through just a little bit. We're going to tie it. And glue it. There you go. Now, for standard usage, what you're going to do is you're going to pack your recovery wadding in there. You're going to fold this guy over like so. I like to wrap my shot cord around this just to take out the excess. Slip it in here. And there we go. In it goes. And leave the shot cord running along the top so things tend to pull up this way and not get stuck in your plane. And there you go. So the airplane is completely done. All we need to do now is install our electronics. So I'm going to go fire up my my hot glue gun and then we'll do that. Okay, so we have this guy hooked up. Just want to verify that, hey, everybody functions as intended. There's a bunch of reversing and whatnot we'll need to do. So we're going to slide this guy in. And it does take a little bit of encouragement to get that battery connector all the way through the servo tunnel. Or what? Yeah, whatever. I can't English today. And then hold that down. This guy pulled all the way around here. Now it is very important that you keep that wire out of these gears on the front and the gears go forward, or they will get tangled up in your push rods. So what we're going to do, slide this to the side. We're going to squirt some hot glue under where we're going to put the middle of our control brick. And then we're going to carefully attempt, at least, to lift it up, slide it over here in place. Everything looks good. Now, the power leads are getting stuck here against the gears. So what I'm going to do is, and you want to be very careful doing this part, you don't get hot glue on the gears as you are gluing the power leads down so that they don't get in the gears. So, 1 second. Alright, so we've got all of this together, and we just want to validate once more. Power's up, servos work. By the way, I had sanded this plastic part very heavily. It's very important that you do so. Otherwise, it will not fit down in there, and even then it's a tight fit. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide push rod down in here, and remember this is a really, really thin tube that you're sliding this in. So you slide one end from one side, and it is going to come out, and we will grab it. But we also have to remind ourselves which one of these is the aileron servo. And so I got it right. So we're going to come out on this side. Apologies for the background fussing. Alright, So what we need to do is carefully snake this control, this push rod into the control horn. And now some of the glue hardened up a little bit. And so at least a little bit less friction on that. Again, like I said, you do have to make sure that your servo can overcome all of that. So I'm trying to go inexpensive on my receiver brick. We'll see how that works out for me. And make sure your wire's not bent, your push rod. Now what we're going to do, now we've got that, so we've got working arrangement here, and what we're going to do is pick which hole you want this guy to go into, meaning usually there's a small one and then some much larger ones. And so we're going to carefully bend this guy. I'm going to pick the hole that's all the way in the back. And now that's going to be a little bit difficult to get into. You'll see why in a second. So this guy's a little bit on the long side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it through to the other side and thread it through. And now, if you see, we're locked into that like so. And so if it helps to plug it in. Works much better if you plug it in. So if I plug that in there, now I'm getting it run movement. So we'll unplug this now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these pliers and we're going to bend this guy forward in your traditional servo style Z-bend. Mine's not doing the greatest job, so I do have a little bit of slop in there. There's some ways you can clean that up. But it looks good so far, so we'll power it back up and just make sure we've got what we're after. So now we're going to repeat the same arrangement on the elevator side. So we'll come in here, thread that guy through. Bring it on out. And now it's in. Now comes the little bit tricky part. The thing is, we have to be concerned about trim because these do not have a whole lot of travel, and so you want to make sure that you're getting it right without having to involve any sub-trim or anything of that nature. So now we will slide this through, and we're going to do exactly the same thing we did on the other side. And we can see we do have a little bit of up elevator deflection. Not much. Oh, I did it again. I did it again. What's wrong with me? Alright. I don't have a whole lot of down travel. Don't need a whole lot. Oh. That's because I'm doing a terrible job of holding onto this, so it's sliding all over the place. Oh, hush. Hush, servo. Hush. So my problem here is I'm actually... Alright, so what I'm going to have to do, I think, is rebend this guy. And now I'm actually going to... I'm actually going to do my other... my full Z-bend and then try to reinstall it. That is going to require me to, I think, go ahead and cut this wire to size, and since I don't have my wire dikes right here with me, if you can't tell from the fact that this is all the way up here, it means I accidentally pop this thing loose of the elevator. And I may have to go off camera here because I may have... Oh, okay. There's problem. Okay. It's just getting locked up back here. So we're going to power the servos down so I don't tear anything up by browning it out. I got a few things dealt with. I went ahead and cut the other push rod to size. This one's being a little bit ornery. It came unbent slightly here. So I'm using tweezers at this point. I've got it in there. So now all we have to do maybe, there we go. Alright, so now we do have a lot of play in that elevator, so you may want to glue that, that join. Or, yeah. So, now my servos are... Ooh, you being ornery. Okay, so, little pitfall here. I did not have this bent all the way to 90 degrees, and it just slipped right out of there. That should make it less prone to sliding out. So let's power it up one more time. If you can't tell, the linkages are a little bit on the fiddly side on this guy, so just bear that part in mind. Alright, so both of these are reversed, so I'm going to page in here. And so I'm going to reverse my elevator entirely, eventually, maybe. And enter, exit, exit. Sorry, this is kind of taking a little time off here. But there we go. Okay, we're going in the correct directions. Alright, so this battery fits in very snugly, and that's okay. Now when I check my CG, the airplane balance is right about there. So you actually could have slid the wing forward a little bit more. Alright, we'll do some flying instructions for this later. It's going to be in a separate video, link down in the description. But this is the finished Carbonette 12 radio control from J&H Aerospace. So, questions, comments, comment section below. Thank you for tagging along on this adventure. We hope you enjoy the plane. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.